Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in this evening podcast, we're going to take a look back at the week that was, and we're going to look ahead to the two big matches coming up on the weekend. Chelsea takes on Aston Villa, and of course, the big one over there at North London, Arsenal taking on Spurs and hoping to keep the pressure on Man City at the top of the table. Now, joining me this evening to review and preview these matches coming up, we have returning to the podcast, Christophe.
Good to be back, viewers and subscribers.
Yes, indeed, Christophe. Yes, indeed. What a week it was. And pretty much any title challenge that Liverpool was putting up is now completely exhausted. Beaten in the Merseyside derby by a resurgent Everton team. And of course, Arsenal getting their win. And also Man City running away big winners over Brighton. So it is still very tight at the top of the table. It's now down to a two-horse race, in my opinion. What says you, Christophe? How did you see these results over the last game week?
I think very surprising the Liverpool lost to Everton, and very surprising the big win Arsenal had over Chelsea. Not surprising of the win, but how big the result was, because I believe this is Arsenal's biggest margin of victory over Chelsea ever. Um, Shocking for Chelsea because it what this says is that these guys can't play without Cole Palmer, and it's a very terrible result. I mean, Arsenal were just even scoring goals accidentally, so it's very
Oh yeah,
embarrassing for
that
them.
that Ben White goal look unintended in all honesty.
Yeah, it
That
looked to
Ben
me
White
like a
second goal,
cross. Looked to me
turn
like a
shot,
cross, turn goal.
goal. Indeed, indeed. I mean, at that point in time, I mean, that game was done and dusted, and any further goals were really just an insult to injury for this toothless Chelsea team, in all honesty. I mean, it has been a tumultuous season for Chelsea, and in all honesty, I really don't see much improvement from this team over the course of the season. They started in mid-table, Christophe, and it would appear in all likelihood that they will finish in mid-table. So really, Pochettino really has not elevated this team to any degree. It's same old, same old. I mean, ever since the appointment of Potter, you then had Potter being fired, Lampard coming in, Lampard being fired, and then Pochettino coming in, and it's been same old, same old. Chelsea mid-table, and it would appear that that trend will continue under Pochettino as well.
Um, to me, it's a matter of Chelsea has overspent this, not last two, but for several transfer windows, Chelsea has overspent on getting the wrong players, and we're seeing the fruits of that incorrect, acquisitions, poor recruitment on their part, and we've seen I think it probably stems back to when Lampard first took charge when Chelsea had that transfer ban, I believe, is when this is, and we're seeing the culmination of that right now. So,
I could not say it better. Definitely spot on there in your analysis, Christoph. It has been an overspend, and not only an overspend, but just poor recruitment in general. I mean, these players which are coming in are really not any level where they can be challenging for the top four or even the Premier League title. That is a far-fetched idea at this point in time. And it's going to be another trophyless season, another mid-table finish. And the prospects of this Chelsea team really does not look good going forward with other teams pushing for the title and also pushing for a top four finish. I mean, we see the improvement of Aston Villa. They can only get better under Emery with good recruitment, making a few more key signings in the summer, and also players who are already there really stepping up. Players like a Leon Bailey, a Diaby, a Watkins, a Douglas Luiz really stepping up and really stamping their class on the league. So Aston Villa is one team you're going to have to contend with. I mean, Liverpool is already there uh, Arteta and Arsenal is there, Man City is there, and of course you would be looking for other teams in the likes of a Manchester United or even a Spurs to also make a splurge in the transfer window and bring in some quality players. So it's a tremendous job there right now at Chelsea, and I'm not sure, is Pochettino Christophe the man to take them forward? Is the question.
Um, I won't necessarily say, Pochettino is at fault. The fault Chelsea is failing currently sits squarely at the foot of the higher ups, the board, um, for a number of years. It's not Pochettino's fault. The problems Chelsea are facing are going back to Lampard's first stint with Chelsea. I think maybe when they got rid of certain, I mean, they probably should never have fired Tuchel at the time. But they are where they are now. It's a matter of Chelsea needs to probably follow Arsenal's template and get rid of all these, useless players, get rid of players who are not good enough, not at the level that you need on high wages, get rid of them and then rebuild from scratch with a clear and defined philosophy that you want to take for the club. Are we going to be, bringing in youth and building from there, in which case, you know that it's not going to be your very first year that you're probably going to win silver. You're going to take a year or 2 years building your squad, what you want, getting them to play how you want. And then that is when you start to challenge for titles. And I think you could say Manchester United probably needs to follow the same template because they do need to have a house cleaning during the summer. If you take a look at their recent FA Cup game against Coventry, going up 3-0 halftime only to win on penalties and then for a number of players to celebrate exuberantly against Coventry, not even a Premier League team. It's a
Indeed,
bit
definitely,
ridiculous.
definitely a classless action there by a few of the United players. It would appear Anthony being the main culprit behind such shenanigans, in all honesty. And I'm not sure if that's the sort of characters that a Manchester United would want in their squad, very unbecoming of a team which you would classify as a class team. But it's modern footballers and it's all about the money these days. It seems that's the key motivation, and these players have big egos which oftentimes goes unchecked, and this was another classic example of that. But it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, at this point in time, Chelsea is a dead horse, and it doesn't make sense we keep beating that dead horse, Christoph. I mean, the big upset result over the last game week was definitely that poor performance from Liverpool, which led to a massive Merseyside defeat. And not only was it a massive defeat in terms of that Everton Liverpool rivalry, this pretty much puts an end to any title hopes or title challenges that this club team had. And it's really now down to a two-horse race, in my opinion. What says you?
Well, yeah, it's a two-horse race again. Um, Arsenal has to win everything for a chance to win it. Man City will definitely have to win everything because if they lose one or they draw, Arsenal will win the league and at least goal difference because Arsenal is way ahead in goals at the moment. Um, but yeah, difficult ahead for Arsenal because they'll have to rely on somebody else to kind of do the job for them. They still have a lot of work to do, but they have to rely on somebody else to get a result against Man City for them to stand a chance at the moment. But shocking for Liverpool. It's not a matter to me, not a case of even the defensive is poor. We know that, but Liverpool could have won had they taken the chances that they had created.
But
So
that, I mean, Christoph, that is a horse we've been beating all season. all season that has been the Achilles heel of this Liverpool team, failing to take their chances. Chances are being created. Chance creation is not Liverpool's problem. They are creating chances time after time after time.
Chance
Very high
conversion.
XG, but it's the conversion of those chances into goals, which seem to be the problematic situation. And again, this game versus Everton was another classic example. And again, the defensive fragilities, the defensive weaknesses were exposed. And as you mentioned, it is something we have analyzed over the period, and it now comes back to bite this Liverpool team. And pretty much, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're operating at these levels, then really you don't deserve to win the title. I mean, right now it's down to Man City and Arsenal. Neither team can afford to slip up. Otherwise, whichever team blinks first, the other team is likely to win the title. But as they say, many a slip between the cup and the lip. So many more games to go, many rivers to cross, so to speak. And the next big river, Christophe, for Arsenal to cross is that North London derby. They take on Spurs, Christophe. Let's jump into it. This one coming up on Sunday, I believe. How do you see this game playing out?
Well, the North London derby is always difficult, and Arsenal will be traveling to White Hart Lane. I expect that Arteta will have some plan to kind of play against Pochettino. I'm actually expecting them to play similarly to how we saw them play against Chelsea. They won't be over pressing the back line, but standing off and allowing them to try and play through them and then win the ball back afterwards. They won't overextend. Um, I think.
So more of a mid block, so to speak, rather than a high press, you
Right.
would
It,
say.
it's going to be a mid block into a press. The press won't start until perhaps the ball goes into midfield. I think there'll be shadow marking players to try and get the ball in a particular direction or to a particular player who they feel is not very good at playing the ball and then win the ball back in those situations. Against Chelsea, we saw Arsenal use Partey, Declan Rice, and Odegaard in the midfield, and that midfield seems to have given Odegaard the freedom to tear Chelsea to shreds.
Well, again, I mean, remember you're playing against a mid-table team. So as is anticipated, you would have gotten the space and the freedom to do such damage. I mean, Spurs is really, you could classify them as a top six team. They are a different animal, in all honesty, when compared to Chelsea. They should pose a different challenge for this Spurs team. And of course, it's a derby match, Christoph. And we all know with derby matches, form goes through the window, and it's really down to really fighting it out, battling it out. And oftentimes it's a team which gives that extra energy and feed off the fans, which sometimes come out the victorious team. So pretty much, I mean, I am sure Spurs will be definitely hyped for this one. The Spurs fans will be champing at the bits to see the demise of this Arsenal team, Christoph. What can we expect in terms of a scoreline? Are you looking for this one to be very tactical? Are you looking for it to be a more free-flowing, open game?
I think this will be a very tactical battle on both sides. Spurs will absolutely not want to lose, not give Arsenal a chance to win a trophy, given that they are trophyless in their history. Arsenal, will want to demolish Spurs because they're Spurs. I'm expecting to see a similar lineup to what we saw at Chelsea. If at Chelsea, if any changes, we'd probably see a change at left back, maybe swapping um Tomiyasu played against Chelsea, maybe swapping Tomiyasu for Kibior. That's the change I would make. But I think Tomiyasu also still did play well, and he does offer a bit more going forward, as well as you still get that defensive output, and he would be able to go against those forwards that will cut inside since he is right-footed. He won't get wrong-footed by um any players that try to cut inside there. Um, Midfield, I would go with the same midfield again. Because if you go back to the beginning of the season when Arsenal played Man City in the Community Shield. This was the midfield that played, and we also saw where Odegaard was also unleashed in that game and really running the midfield, skipping and turning Man City players. You know, they could not touch him and take the ball off of him. So I'm thinking this was the projected midfield for the season, but with the early injuries to Partey and Timber, they had to change things around. But it's looking good. If Partey doesn't start, we're expecting to see Jorginho back in there. But I think this lineup, the lineup that played against Chelsea, was very good. Only change I would probably make again is to either left back, Tomiyasu or Kivior, defensive midfield, Jorginho or Partey, and I think we continue with Kai Havertz up front. And then on the left side, you could go with, one of three players, Martinelli, Trossard, or Jesus. Trossard played well. I think you continue with him since he's in good form. I don't think you drop him for the game. Unless you have some particular plan or tactic that you are going to employ and you know it's going to work. Don't mess with that winning formula at the moment. Just give your players instructions that you want them to carry out throughout the game.
Yes, indeed, I agree. I mean, why change a winning formula? You found a team which seemed to be gelling, working together as a unit and getting the desired result. And also, this would be good reward for the efforts of those players who are not your usual forwards or your usual starters, the likes of a Trossard, as you mentioned, Tamiyasu, a party rounding back into form. This would be a good reward for their excellent performance versus what you could say is a mid-table Chelsea team. So viewers and subscribers, don't use that as any major gauge. This is a Chelsea team in decline all season, and this is who they are. They are, deeply rooted in that mid-table position, and that is the sort of quality play which they're giving currently. But Spurs, Christophe, I mean, looking at this Spurs team and looking at Ange, this Spurs team does have the ammunition to hurt Arsenal, in all honesty, with the likes of a Son, a Madison, a Brennan Johnson, these forward-thinking players. Goals are in this team. And of course, we know the usual playing style of Spurs. They will be looking to dominate possession and really take the game to Arsenal, playing out from the back, as has been the style of Ange and his philosophy ever since taking over the Spurs outfit. However, I must say, the Spurs team have been leaking a few goals of late, and Van der Veen was made to look ordinary versus the Newcastle team a few weeks ago. Newcastle really taking apart this Arsenal team. So possibly,
Tottenham
that
team.
right, that Tottenham team, but possibly that could be a chink in the Spurs armor. If Arsenal were to go ahead early, then it could really become embarrassing for Spurs. But it's a derby, Christoph, and tackles will be flying. The fans will be wild up for this one. And of course, the motivation is definitely there from Spurs. And of course, Arsenal know that they must win. So going into the game with this sort of mentality could possibly play in the hands of Spurs, Christoph, where you could say they can be devastating on the counter. The likes of a Son running at you, the likes of a Brennan Johnson running at you, uh, you know, those overlapping wing backs, the like of a Poro. So it's gonna be a tight game, as you mentioned. But in terms of a scoreline, Christoph, tell us, how are you predicting this one?
At the moment, I'm predicting 2-1 to Arsenal. Like you said, I'm predicting a very tight game. Spurs will be especially aggressive in this one, and I think Arsenal will do well to come away with the win. But I think Arsenal win 2-1.
Arsenal to win. I can't really disagree with that result in terms of the scoreline. However, Arsenal has become a defensive stone wall. It's hard to breach this defense, Christoph. And while the game might be tight, I really don't see the Spurs team getting a goal versus what could be say is almost like a vault with a six-digit combination lock. It's hard to breach. And I really don't see Spurs scoring against this Arsenal team. So for me, I do predict Arsenal will win. but I believe they will win this one 2 goals to nil, not allowing a goal to pass them in this one, playing away from home and playing against what, the result of Spurs have become rather indifferent of late, as it would appear that Aston Villa is pretty much solidifying themselves as that number 4 team in the league, right behind Liverpool, and securing Champions League for next season. So that is what I see in this one. Arsenal to come out victorious and keep the pressure on Man City. And of course, Christophe, speaking of Aston Villa, they are the next game that we will give a closer look on. They take on Chelsea. How do you see that one playing on? We've spoken in depth about Chelsea already. What of this Aston Villa team, Christophe? What can we expect from them coming off their last game?
So, I don't remember Aston Villa's last game.
Well, I mean, remember, they had taken all 3 points versus Arsenal. They were one of the teams which really dented that Arsenal title push.
Yeah,
And
that
of
was a midweek
course,
game. I was talking the weekend. I think they beat Bournemouth 3-1.
that's right, yes.
Right.
And of course, the big guns firing again. Leon Bailey, the Jamaican, really finding some real form in this season, Christoph, and really looking like a world-class winger. And of course, Ole Watkins again. To me, he is my player of the season, and I am backing him to win the Golden Boot. I mean, a player who doesn't take penalty, and he is right up there vying for the Golden Boot for this season. Talk to us about this Aston Villa team. What can we expect from them versus toothless Chelsea? I am hearing that Cole Palmer, though, Christoph, should be back. And we know he has been the one who has been carrying this Chelsea team all season. Without him, they look very toothless. They almost look like a championship squad. So Cole Palmer should be back versus what could be classified as a confident Aston Villa team. How are you seeing this game playing out?
Um,
And
having
of course, this one is at home to Aston Villa as well, so they will definitely have the home crowd advantage. Another
um,
big London matchup.
I expect Aston Villa to win, especially because Chelsea is coming off at the back of a very big defeat like this. We don't know the mental state of these players. They could be very fragile after the loss. I think Unai Emery will be coming into this one with even a game plan. He might look to replicate or copy what Arsenal did against Chelsea, the way they played a bit standoff with that mid block versus the lower block. But I'm expecting Aston Villa to go out and try and dominate possession against Chelsea. Chelsea, if Chelsea want to win, they definitely need the Cole Palmer to be fit and ready to go because they don't look like scoring. Nicholas Jackson just absolutely it
The main
very
culprit,
not
definitely.
I mean I mean far worse than other players who we've seen missing chances like a Darwin Nunes. I don't understand how he keeps his place in the lineup when presented with so many
I
chances
mean,
only
but
to
really, who else does Chelsea really have to play that number 9 position,
you know
Christoph? Who else?
put
There's
Cole
no one
Palmer at
else.
number 9 clearly because
But
clearly he's the
then
only one who
you
can
have a
score.
gap in that midfield,
You put somebody else, you fill that gap with somebody else. You have Sterling, you have Mikhailo Modric.
Well, that
Sterling
that
started
that
out
that
playing
that
on the right, not a
that
bad.
is true. That is true. I mean, Sterling has been riding the bench of late and looking on, seeing Jackson missing, gilt edge opportunities, a veteran in the Premier League, a real quality player in his heyday, So, I mean, it would be very shocking if Pochettino did not ring some changes for this game versus Aston Villa. It would be absolutely shocking, and it would
Yeah, it
just
will
go
be.
to show the lack of leadership that would have been there. Changes has to be made, and a better performance has to be demanded from this Chelsea unit, with all the money spent and the big wages that these players are currently on. So at least one change should be coming back in. Cole Palmer, I'm hearing, is fit and ready to take on Aston Villa. So that is one change that we'll be looking to see. Of course, I feel Emery will stick to his regular winning formation. Bailey again should get the start. And of course, I would not bet against Bailey making another offensive contribution, Christoph. He has been one of the more underrated players of the league. And when you look at his statistical contribution, it is up there with the players who are getting all the fanfare. We have to call a spade a spade. We have to highlight quality performance. And as we know, it's a world of analytics we live in. So when you look at the statistics, Bailey is right up there performing with the best of the best. So we have to give credit to Bailey. Big up to Leon Bailey, the Jamaican, and of course, Emery for giving him the opportunity and really putting him in the position to get the best out of this quality player. I mean, his quality is undeniable at this point in time. I saw this wicked pass from him. I would classify it as the pass of the season, Christophe, cutting that defense open with the outside of his right peg, which led directly to that goal from Rogers on the left side. Brilliant, marvelous, I must say. And we'll be hoping that this sort of form and this sort of performance continues versus this Chelsea team. But Christoph, in terms of a scoreline prediction, how do you see this one playing out? Can Aston Villa take all 3 points, or will we see a comeback from Chelsea?
At the moment, I can't see Chelsea getting anything from it. I would go with 3-1 Aston Villa, Cole Palmer to score for Chelsea.
Definitely. This one I am looking at a high scoring game as well. Chelsea should get a goal or two. In all honesty, it would be hard to see them not scoring versus what I would classify as a rather leaky Aston Villa defense. Aston Villa hasn't been the most defensively sound team throughout the season. They do give you chances to score, but oftentimes they outscore you at the other end with the likes of a Watkins firing. So Chelsea should get at least 2 goals, I'm thinking. I'm looking at a very high scoring game, Christoph, but I do believe Aston Villa will come out the victor. So I am looking at a 3-2 victory for Aston Villa with the fans behind them, and Watkins really going for that golden boot push. It is this time of the season when players start looking at their statistics, Christoph, and seeing where they can get an edge. And 2 of the top goal scorers go head to head in this one. Cole Palmer, you could say the resident penalty kicker for Chelsea. Most of his goals have come from the penalty spot. And of course, Ole Watkins, all of his goals have been scored in open play, none from the penalty spot. So you could say it's the penalty king versus the open goals, the open play goal scorer, so to speak. So Ole Watkins looking to push on, looking at possibly having a successful Euros ahead of him, and obviously looking for that individual award of winning the Golden Boot. So this should be
Ole
definitely a
Watkins
matchup of
was
these offensive team.
Ole Watkins was selected for England squad.
Well, I mean, on the back of this farm, he should be one of the first names, Christoph, on that plane. His ticket should already been
Potentially,
bought and put down.
potentially, but we've seen where Gareth Southgate has a crop of players that he likes to work with, regardless of form.
And that seemed to be the problem plaguing this England team. Too many players to choose from, and players not, and Southgate not being able to really unleash the players in their best position. I mean, when you look at a player like Foden, he's firing on all cylinders for Man City, yet he can't get a start in this English team. If you understand what I'm saying, I mean, he is firing on all cylinders, top player for Man City, yet when he goes to England, his talent is really not being used in the most effective of manners. So I think this is the problem that is going to plague this English team going forward into these Euros, where quality players are there, but the manager in his tactics and his formation failed to really maximize the strength of his best players. So I'm definitely looking forward to see how this Euros tournament play out. But Christoph, in terms of a quick fire situation, give me your take on these matches. Give me a quick scoreline, a quick fire right off the top of your head based on, of course, your footballing knowledge. West Ham, Liverpool.
That's a difficult one. I don't know how that one will go. It could be where Liverpool bounces back, or we could see more of the same from them. I don't know. But at the moment, I would go with 2-2. West Ham 2, Liverpool 2.
West Ham to Liverpool. Man U, Burnley.
Uh, Manu 1-0.
Newcastle, Sheffield United.
Newcastle 3-0.
Fulham, Crystal Palace.
Um, Crystal Palace 2-1.
Wolves, Luton.
Wolves 3-0.
Everton, Brentford.
Let's go with 2-all draw.
Bournemouth, Brighton.
2-all draw.
And final one, Forest versus Man City.
Man City 5, Nottingham Forest 0.
Definitely. I mean, some very interesting games coming up in terms of, the other fixtures. Fascinating stuff, as you mentioned. At this point in time, it's hard to read this Liverpool team. Which Liverpool will turn up? Will the mentality have been gone? Will the euphoria of challenge for the title really set the cats among the pigeon for this Liverpool team? Will their confidence have fallen flat on the ground, having suffered defeat versus Everton and pretty much wiping away any hopes of a title push? So, I mean, in one sense, they could play a more freer game and finally start taking some chances. And on the other hand, West Ham could again score the first goal, as has been the tradition versus this Liverpool team, and really take them apart at home with the fans pushing them forward. So it should definitely be another interesting game. And of course, with the players having in their back of their minds that this is Klopp's final season in charge as well, that may start to play a role in terms of the mentality, the psyche, and the thinking of these players. But that will be a very interesting game, just in terms of the psychology that both teams go into this game with. So definitely, viewers and subscribers, some very interesting games coming up, and of course, games with massive implications for both the title and of course games with massive implication for the relegation zone. Forest should be motivated to try to get a result against Man City. They are really flirting with relegation. Everton, of course, is on the cusp of escaping, so they should be fully motivated as well. And of course, Brentford is all but secure their spot in the EPL. Maybe they need another 3 points to mathematically secure themselves in the league. So again, you can't take anything for granted. So all of these games, Christoph, really have implications at one end of the table or another. All these teams are still motivated to go out and really get a result. No game is really a dead rubber, in all honesty, whether they're pushing for Europe, whether teams are looking to escape relegation or teams are pushing for the title. It's really all to play for in this weekend of football going forward, and the season is quickly winding down. But Christoph, any final thoughts in terms of this weekend's football action coming up?
Definitely an interesting weekend of football to come forward. Probably one of the more important weekends, specifically for the title race, Arsenal and Tottenham. That's very big because, as we know, Arsenal, dropping any points for the remainder of the season is probably, title race over. Man City win. I mean, I still think at the moment Man City is not going to drop any points, so it's probably just still going. It if Arsenal doesn't lose anything, it goes down to the final day. Man City win on the final day, regardless of Arsenal result. They win. Man City has to drop some points. Uh, it will be an interesting weekend for Liverpool to see if they can bounce back and by some miracle get themselves back into the title race. Um,
That ship is sailed, Christoph. As I mentioned in our podcast several weeks ago, ever since they drew versus Manchester United 2-2, that was the curtain for me personally. And so said, so done thus far. So this Liverpool team, they tried, but this season was not to be theirs.
You
Something
know,
was missing from
for
this team.
me, for Liverpool, when I saw that Liverpool would probably drop points the remainder of the season is when they actually drew in the FA Cup with Manu only to lose late because of the number of chances I saw them create and being unable to finish them and losing to what I can only describe as one of the worst Manchester United teams since Sir Alex. So that's what I thought to myself, Liverpool are going to probably drop
Yeah,
points for the
definitely,
remainder of the
definitely.
season.
The writing was really on the wall, and I mean, they were still churning out a few results, but by the skin of their teeth, some highly emotional victories. Nothing easy like a 5-0 that Arsenal, pegged Chelsea back, or a 4-1, as is the case with a Man City. It was always a 2-1, a 3-2, a late goal. There was always some kind of emotional involvement where leaving it late, having to come from behind, that sort of thing. And I mean, as I mentioned, at some point in time, giving away the first goal will come back to haunt you. And that was the case versus Crystal Palace when it really started to go downhill. And of course, that was the case versus Everton just last week. So it's good try, Liverpool. It's really good work from Klopp, good service to Liverpool over his tenure. Did manage to get one EPL title, another Champions League. So well done to Klopp. But unfortunately, this is where it all ends. And definitely the search for a new manager is on in earnest for Liverpool. But there you have it, viewers and subscribers. Thank you again for tuning in to us here on Beating the Press podcast. Again, I'm asking for your help in helping us to grow the channel. Please share, and of course, if you haven't subscribed as yet, hit that subscription bell. Leave us your comment. Let us know what you think about the upcoming fixtures. Who will win the title? What's your predicted scoreline for the games coming up on the weekend? Thanks again to Christophe for coming on board and really sharing his opinions and his insights into these footballing games. And until next time, this is Rafa signing off.